Hello and welcome to A Shade of Grey podcast,
Episode 1
episode 1, kind of.
with me, Clairahermet.
Me, Nathan Toole.
Should we, before we start talking about anything else, should we just explain, because the trials and tribulations that we've been through to make this happen? Because I just want to say this quickly, we recorded the first episode yesterday, but we forgot to, well, I forgot, sorry.
You forgot.
To turn the camera on.
You forgot.
And I started that episode by saying, should we talk about the trials and tribulations that it's taken us to get to this podcast? So it was already things.
How ironic.
Yeah, and then I made it even worse. So it was almost like we've had to fight quite hard to make this happen, just in the sense that we've had loads of problems with like technology and stuff, haven't we, along the way? So whenever we planned to do it, it just hasn't happened.
Yes, it's been a bit of an issue, the technology, but we're here now.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time watching how-to videos. They go too fast to me, and then I can't interpret them properly, and I just run away from things like that.
Well, it's just about taking the time to that's why YouTube's there, so you can pause it and go back. You know?
Yeah, I know. I do understand that. That's probably I was just being lazy.
It's not like old TV where you can't pause and rewind. You know.
I hear you. I really do.
Like the other day when you asked me if I remember VHS tapes.
I was just checking. You are younger than me, so I was just making sure that you knew what that was, because that was part of my childhood. So this is A Shade of Grey. Should we explain why it's called A Shade of Grey?
Well, go ahead.
So we decided to call the podcast. Well, it was Nathan came up with the idea of doing a podcast, and then he kind of came up with the concept of the grey thing, which is the idea that if you cross or mix black and white together, you get grey. And then I added into it that sometimes the things that we talk about are going to be what people might consider to be in the grey area. Like,
yes.
Not things that we're supposed to talk about so much, or, some people might agree or disagree. Kind of things, I guess, that people have strong opinions on. So, yeah, we thought that name would work.
I think it does work.
Yeah?
So far.
So good. So yesterday when we did our first podcast, we were kind of just rambling about a load of different stuff and bringing in the New Year thing, which we can go back to, I think, within this one. But something that came up today in conversation when I was talking to someone, a friend of mine, who was talking about us possibly working together, etc. And he asked where I was, and I said, "Oh, I'm in this little village called Coggeshall, which is where my parents come from." And he went, "Oh," he's a black guy, and he said, "Oh, the kind of place where there's no black people." And I kind of laughed, and I said, "Well, yeah, until I brought my boyfriend." And he said, "How was that? Like that first encounter of your boyfriend meeting your family?" And I think he said something about Get Out, which obviously we've watched that film. I know how it was for me. It was cringeworthy, but I don't know that. I don't think that's got anything to do with the color of your skin. I think that's
why was it cringeworthy for you?
Because my family are insane, and not only they're insane, but like their friends as well. Like my stepmom's friend was making like lurid comments at you, more than one of them. It wasn't just at my house, by the way. It was a party where everyone had consumed quite a lot of alcohol, and like we were just trying to make some food, and I'm not going to say her name. She came in and like looked at you, and she was like, "Oh, you're lovely, aren't you?" And then she said that she's going to be taking your smile to bed with her tonight, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this can't be happening." How did you perceive it? Because there was also the issue of my dad, his girlfriend, and my stepmom.
Went fine with me, because a couple of weeks ago I had breakfast with her.
Who?
The same woman that made the comments.
Oh, did she remember?
She probably didn't.
Probably didn't. I have reminded her though, but I think she just probably has no shame anymore.
No.
I don't know if it's that.
How was it for me meeting everyone?
And also, I guess like you're from Southeast London.
Yeah.
So from being from somewhere like that's so multicultural to come to like this little town in Essex, which isn't. How does that feel?
When I went to Coggeshall the first time, it was very much a change of scenery. I'd never, all my life, I'd known a lot of like white people, like older people, like 50 plus, and I've been to their houses and everything before, but going into a village is something very different. There were a lot of looks and stares and stuff at first. I think people got used to me now. I don't
Do you think
really
that's
go
just
there
'cause
that
you're
often.
handsome, or
No,
that
I
you're a
don't.
new face, or do you think it's because you're black? Because
A lot of the time, because obviously that's not the first time it's happened to me. Obviously, that particular time being in a village, but it's not the first time it's happened to me in public before. So the fact that is not the first time, I would have to say somewhat is to do because I'm black. I don't think I'm that good looking for people to be
I do.
staring at me.
But you know, like also there's the element of it's a small town when someone like who
Yeah, that as
people
well.
don't know. Like
That as well.
I know loads of people, and when someone that I don't know, I'm like, oh, who's that? You know, like there is that element of interest.
Yeah, but that happens anywhere. Like on where I used to live, I was on that road for 20 years living there or something like that, 20 plus years. So anytime there was a new neighbor, I knew them, and you know, they stood out because I knew that I hadn't seen their face before. So I know there was probably an element of that as well. But you know, as I said, I've had these experiences before. When I walk into a room filled with white people, I know that there are certain stares. Like even if it's, oh, what's he doing here? He's a new face. There's also, what's he doing here? What the fuck is he doing here? Like, there's also that.
Okay, and I think like it was not difficult for me to understand, but difficult for me to even perceive. Like I wouldn't, you know, when inviting you to like come and meet my family and all of that kind of stuff, I don't think that's something that I would even have considered. I mean, we've spoken about it before, so now I'm like aware of it, and I know that, you know, it's something that kind of happens on a daily basis. But for like being a white woman, obviously I know about racism.
Yeah.
Like I'm aware, I understand, I know, you know, quite a lot about history, but I don't live in a body that has black skin. And so like it's not even, it's the ignorance, I guess, of not even considering that would be a thing. So I think that was like an eye opener for me, is like, you know, comfortability. Like I can go, well, you know, exactly the same things happened to me when I've been on holiday to the Caribbean, blah, 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 blah. But
I remember you did actually say
don't-
that to me one time.
no, I don't think I said the same things happened to me. I said that's the only thing I can compare it to.
You said, I remember you said when you went somewhere they called you white devil or something like that.
yeah,
And
that
then
did
you said,
happen.
oh yeah, I can compare it to that.
That's all I can compare it to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. My knowledge is small. That was like when I was younger, and that was an ex-boyfriend's uncle who called me that in New York, and I had to stay in their house. But that, you know, like when people try and preach or plea reverse racism, I'm not one of those people. That's the only point that I would have of trying to understand, because I don't think that reverse racism is even a thing. I mean, it is, but it's not, if that makes sense. Because
Well, I just think the word racism has got very diluted, and to be a racist implies you have to be a racist. You have to have some sort of power over people to be able to affect their lifestyle or their choices or whatever decisions that and opportunities they can have. So that's why a black person might get not offended, but they will be critical if you call them racist, because they don't have any power to affect other races. You know, so
maybe
black
that's
people can be it's just
prejudice.
you'd have to call it prejudice or derogatory, like towards people, because you can't categorize it as racism, because it's not really the same thing. But yeah, of course there are black people that can say derogatory things, or they can have prejudiced views, or you know, that's part and parcel. That's life, innit? That's because people have been segregated, and it's you know, you have to understand the art of war from Sun Tzu. It depicts divide and conquer. That's the society that we're in now.
Yeah, where everyone is kept separate by putting divides in place, and mostly they're kind of created by media, I guess, by media giants as well, and putting fear into people about certain things, and then that causes that segregation. I think, you know, I met you when I was traveling, right? And I remember that during that 10 months, I met you at the start of like my travels, and then I didn't see you till I got back to England. But during that time, because we had a big argument, didn't we? Like the first time we met, and it was about like race.
Yeah.
And
that was a good argument.
It was a good argument. I mean, I was like pretty much in tears.
Well, yeah, because you lost, didn't it? So it was.
No, I didn't lose. Let's not start that right now.
Okay.
So there was that, but then I think it was during that year is when there was loads of publicised murders, police murders of black people. And I mean, it's been happening for years, but it was when it made the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Far more than it had, and there was just so many, and I had to really like stop and question, because I'd heard the term like white privilege flying around. I'd watched, there's a lady, some people might have seen her videos, Jane Elliott, like a white lady from the US.
I was going to ask you what her name was.
Jane Elliott, and she's in her 80s now, and she's you know, spoken out against racism and written books and etc. And I think she's an exceptional woman. And so I was kind of like, I found myself just a little bit paralyzed, because it was like realizing that there was this whole world that I didn't even realize existed, because I'm white, so I haven't had to experience any of those injustices. And that is what the privilege, that when people say white privilege, you know, that's one of the elements of white privilege, is that I'm privileged enough because of my skin color that I haven't had to experience those things.
Yeah.
But when I realized, I actually messaged my friend Tahira, who's black, and I said to her, you know, like, what, it sounds like an idiot thing to say and so stupid as well, but I was like, what can I do? And I kind of was like, why hasn't anyone told me about this before, you know? Yeah. And her response, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, you know, this is how it is. And it's almost like she felt sorry for me that I'd had this realization. And then, oh, thank you, computer. And then she said that actually the only thing I can really do is speak about it, you know, to other people, so that other people might become aware about it. And I guess like learn, it's like, I can't believe that I'd never had that conversation with any one of my black friends previous to all of that stuff happening.
Well, that's why I like the Jane Elliott study that she did. I watched it. It didn't work too well in England.
Yeah, because they knew though, didn't they? They knew what it was about.
But the original study, I'm sure she done a lot like off camera and stuff like that as well. But the original one I saw on TV, it was on Oprah, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. It highlights the fact that, you know, there's prejudice based on something that the victim of the prejudice cannot change.
Yeah.
You know, like, to be black, you're born with black skin. You can't bleach your way out of it. You know, some people do try that. Mm-hmm. You know, because white is seen as power, mm-hmm. so they bleach themselves to try and, you know, to gain in popularity or whatever, you know, amongst other races. But yeah, her study was about eye colors, your eye color, and if you had it was brown and blue. I can't remember which one was.
Well, she'd change it whenever she did it. She started doing it when she was a school teacher.
Okay.
The day after Martin Luther King.
Oh yeah, she did. Yeah. But yeah, obviously you can't change that. No. So the people that were feeling the prejudice, mm-hmm. obviously they were white people, but because they had a certain color of eyes, they couldn't get away from it.
No, so it was one group was seen as superior and the other group was seen as inferior based on the color of their eyes, which obviously is something that they can't change. So, but they could see how unfair it was. Yeah. And even when she did it in school, she said the first time that she did it, that first day, within minutes of the children with whatever colour eyes it was that made them more powerful being given that power, they started to act on it and they started to take full advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I think that, I just think she's amazing. And I actually emailed her. And I emailed her because I was really hoping that on my trip I would get a chance to go and talk to her, right?
Yeah.
And she replied back to me. And I in the original message, I said that I wanted to talk to her about white privilege, and she wrote back to me and she was like, I don't think that. She said that it was fine to go and see her for a chat, but she's like, I don't know if you're going to like me very much because I don't believe in white privilege. It's white ignorance. And she didn't obviously say that to me. It was written, but I can tell her tone. Like, I've watched so many videos from her talking because I just think she's like so knowledgeable and totally.
To be honest, I don't feel like maybe you might not have been ready for her at the time. Of when you emailed, if you emailed her before you left. Do you think? Because of the argument that we had in Brazil, I don't think that you would have been ready for someone else to tell you similar things I was telling you.
But if we want to talk about this argument, because you're obviously going back to it, you've written it down in your notes.
I didn't write it down anyway.
What you said to me, and this was the line that you went with, yeah? And fair enough, I might not have listened to your argument, but this is the line you went with, that you believe the only way... Yeah.
Okay, I don't think
this is what you said. For black and white people to coexist, is for them to live in segregated and separate communities, and that was your exact words. And that's what made me so upset, because within your family you have black and white people. Yeah. So what would happen? The white people live on one side and the black people live on the other side. Can they go and see each other, or they can't go and see each other? Like, how is that going to work? That statement that you made, I think that's all I heard. So anything that came after that, I was just like kind of outraged that you would say that. Since then, and because of discussions that we've had and things that we've been through.
No, wait, come on. Let me go back to the point.
Go back to that point, yeah.
The reason I said that is because, previously, but before, like historically, black people and white people, they've never got on, you know. They've never, even in more recent history, since slavery, as you said, because of as we were talking about the Jane Elliott thing, because of what people look like, they have been they've had the power thrust down upon them. They haven't been able to progress. Someone said, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Claude Anderson. He said it's like playing a game of Monopoly, but they haven't given you any money or any houses or any properties or anything like that. Everybody else has been playing for hundreds of years, and they say, "All right, you go."
That's start what you're talking about.
That's what happened after slavery.
Slavery was abolished.
Yeah. So since then, there's been black people try to accumulate some sort of wealth, but they don't really understand how to play the game properly yet. Also,
there's still a lot of psychological damage.
There's a lot of psychological damage, to the point where even things like we were talking about financially, during those times, like if you did get any money, you were afraid that it was going to be taken from you. So you spend it straight away. Whether the thing's valuable or not, you just get rid of it because you don't want it to be taken. That comes more from things like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and stuff like that. But the point is,
it's like that. Your only opportunity is now.
Yeah. So nowadays, because of all everything so Instagramized, what you need to spend what people think they need to spend their money on is fashion, to look better than everyone else, and
well, it's material stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So they get rid of their money as quickly as they can, buy their Gucci, their Ferragamo or whatever, and then they're happy for the time that they put them on. As soon as they take them off, put their pajamas on, they go to bed realizing they still not where they need to be.
But I think that can be said of like all of us, it's that. And so, actually, there's a saying that that when you buy the thing that you think you want, it's not actually the thing that makes you happy. It's the fact that the nagging in your brain and that need to have it has stopped. That gives you a relief that makes you feel better. But it's like anything, like I remember when I was younger and I thought, if I get a fast car, I wanted it, but I wanted it so I look good and to impress other people. And that's so much of what society is built on. And I probably had it for a few weeks, and then I was just like, it's just like any car. And since then, I've never spent a lot of money on a car. I mean, you've seen my car, you can tell.
I've never really been. I love fast cars. Yeah, there's certain cars I would love to drive, but it seems like a waste of money to me. Yeah, a lot of things seem like a waste of money to me. Like I don't have any expensive clothes or cars or anything like that. Now, more recently, if I'm going to invest my money in anything, it'll be gold.
Yeah, we've spoken about that. But let's go back to, because you were just talking about, obviously the fact that why you said about people living in segregated communities and talking about
Why I said
the
that?
end of slavery, and then obviously
Why I said that is because business is mainly business. Like to have power in this world as it stands now, you have to have some sort of infrastructure, some sort of power. Like you to if you want to, let's say for example, I don't know if this happens around the world, but let's say for example, if police were killing your people, maybe if you had some businesses, and then you can go to the politicians and say, we'll back your campaign if you get the police to stop killing us. I'm sure a few politicians will be with that,
because it's also based on money. It's
well,
so
yeah,
so
like
based on money. Money is power in the way that
everyone's
society's
campaign and everybody's campaign to push themselves, to promote themselves, and what they're trying to do is based on money. So if you have that backing behind you, but it's for a cause, you can pursue whatever you need to. And well, what we're seeing now with Rupert Murdoch and people like that, because they have the money and the infrastructure, when they need to push what they need to push, whether it be conservative votes or
getting away with a whole load of stuff.
Yeah, they have the money and the influence to do that.
So what you're suggesting is that if the black community and white community were separate, the black community could build that infrastructure for themselves.
Yeah, well,
that's what you were.
I was saying that because of people like Marcus Garvey and stuff like that. They promoted like being in like to create a community of your own, to build your money and your base, and then do business with other people. Not like you don't segregate from other races completely and don't talk to them at all. You do business, but you help yourself
first.
Yeah, black people don't help themselves. Now, I'm more at the point where it's like everybody should help each other. That's the dream. And I remember saying to you after, maybe it was like a week after or something like that, that would be the dream, for everybody to help each other and everyone to live together peacefully. But the powers at be right now, that is not what they want. That is not what they focus on.
Well, like you said, it's the divide and conquer thing, isn't it? It's the separating everybody and making everyone hate each other. And I think we're so, most people are so distracted by that. They've got no clue what the people that are kind of in control of our country are actually doing, where they're spending the money that we pay in taxes. Like, most of us don't, we can never know, because they're only ever going to tell us what they want us to know. And when you start to look into it, you're like, oh my God. And you realise, corporations and how much power they have over governments. And also, when you look outside of just the UK and you look to other countries, i.e. Africa, and you look at the systems that are set up there and the people that are in power there, and realise that it all links back to the UK or to the US, and that ultimately there seems to only really be one power, power. Like, is that, who knows?
But where we were when we were actually having the conversation was,
Brazil.
It was Brazil, and it was the prime example, really, because outside of Africa, Brazil has the largest
population.
I can't remember the diaspora of black people outside of Africa, and where are they? They don't even mention them, really. Like we went to I didn't go with you, but we went to the carnival, the parade there, and they had all these faces of all these old I don't even know what monarchy or what their presidential or prime ministerial setup is out there, but they had all these pictures of these white faces. I'm sure, it's no black people helped you throughout your whole time, and then black people are the poorest people in Brazil.
Yep.
All the money really is poured into Brasilia and like certain blocks of Rio de Janeiro, and maybe some parts of Sao Paulo. Everywhere else is poor.
Yeah, I mean, I spent some time in Sao Paulo and I loved it and I thought it was really nice. And I stayed with a Brazilian couple, but they're European Brazilian, so that's how they would have got there.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to be taken to meet some indigenous Brazilians.
Yeah.
And their situation in Brazil is fucked. Like,
Yeah.
Brazil, the government don't even acknowledge them, their existence or their importance. And I went to meet these people and they're like a lost tribe, and I think there's only 35, 36. I made a video on YouTube about it of them, and they have their own school and their own like doctor and etc. But they're dressed in like Western clothes. And I had a girl who's translating with me, and I spoke to the chief of the tribe, and he said, 50 years ago, people would come here and say, why aren't you dressed properly? You're like heathens. What's wrong with you? And now they wear Western clothes. People are like, why are you wearing Western clothes? Why aren't you wearing traditional clothes?
Yeah.
And why are you using mobile phones? But so indigenous people, there wasn't even like the Americas. So within South America and North America didn't exist, and there wasn't borders between the countries. So they were all nomadic. So they would go like throughout the seasons, they'd go to places where the land was rich and they'd harvest this, they'd harvest that, etc. And now they're trapped into this tiny piece of land, and it is like we walked around it, and it's it is pretty small. And he said we can't grow anything here. Like it's not suitable to grow anything. So their lifestyle, as they knew it, is not sustainable. But yet they're not accepted into Brazilian culture. So for instance, he said that he went into Sao Paulo, got on a bus, and this lady like looked at him. Obviously, he's got quite distinguishing features, and she just wouldn't sit next to him because he's indigenous. And then one of the boys in the tribe, he was actually a mascot for the World Cup in Brazil, and he did a massive protest. So he obviously had a flag to hold up.
Yes.
But when he opened it up, it had a message in Brazilian about in support of Brazil's indigenous people. And he's now on their top 10 list of most wanted terrorists or something stupid like that, like to watch out for. He's 15. And what the Brazilian government is saying to these people is, you need to show us proof that you own that land. So before there was ownership, they were there.
Yeah.
The Europeans came in and created ownership and deeds and etc. And now they're saying you need to show us deeds. Otherwise, you can't have this land. And that's just one place in Brazil. This is happening like all over Brazil.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And all over the world. I mean, yeah. But I think it's there's incredible racism there. It's like, yeah, crazy.
Well,
but that's Brazil. We're here in England, and
where it's much more subtle.
Oh, can we talk about the time with your family? Well, we've been watching the who was it? What's his name? Muhammad Ali interview with Parkinson, and then who got up first? I think your mum got up first because it was like the interview that he did. When was that? Like the 70s?
It was.
Or 60s?
I don't even remember. I think it was the 70s. I'm not sure actually. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, and then your mum got up first and left because he was kind of talking about like white people and racism and etc. Yeah. And then your dad got up and left, and then your dad came in and asked me if I was okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, fine, it's okay. But I found that like obviously really endearing, but like the fact that they would think that I wouldn't be okay was kind of like a bit strange. It's like,
why was it strange?
I suppose because they felt that I might be offended, like hearing what he was saying.
Yeah.
And I guess that maybe a lot of white people may be offended, and because I think
why would you personally be offended? Like what in terms of?
I wasn't offended.
Right. Yeah, I'm saying, but why would you think that they might think you were offended? Not because.
Because I guess because white people aren't used to hearing what he was saying, and white people aren't used to being on the end of the truth, I guess. Ultimately, it's the truth. And I think that's like the hard thing. It's the truth. People don't like to hear the truth, because when people hear the truth, they have to accept their role within it, or their place within that truth.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's really hard. And I think like it's the same. I mean, it's the same for me. Like, I'm not going to say it's easy for me. Sometimes when you have got books and stuff that you're reading, or you like say stuff to me, there's a part of me, and I don't even know where it is, that's kind of like offended by what you say. But then I have to sit with it and kind of like really listen to it and really hear it and realize that it's not personal to me.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the difference, is that it's not a personal attack. And so I guess like I'm a person who takes a lot of things, like for instance today, there was a leak and it went down to the man downstairs ceiling and leaked through his ceiling. And although like I didn't know that leak was happening, I didn't do it on purpose. Like I felt incredibly like guilty. Maybe that's a terrible example, but I take things like, rather than being able to hear it objectively and say, you know what, you're right, like how are we gonna sort this out? I take it as like a personal, like, are you thinking it's me? Like, why? It's even irrational things like why did that, like, what? Not, I feel like responsible, but how can I can't be responsible for something that happened that long ago, but I am responsible now. And I think coming to that is fine, but then it's like, what do I do? Like, what do I do? And I don't know, I find it like I want to be sincere and do something that actually helps, but I don't know what that is.
It's hard to know what to do. It's hard for a black person to know what to do, so never mind what a white person could do to help the black person's situation, or any other coloured person's situation.
That's the other thing as well. I feel like a dickhead. I feel like an absolute like dickhead for, it's like when Lady Gaga said about like, oh, black people, tell us how we can help you. It's like,
oh no, well, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to. You're wearing fucking meat dresses and shit. You could there's certain people you could just stay on your own team. I don't want you on my team.
But it's that thing of like, mate, can't you work it out for yourself?
It's interesting because she is originally, I don't know if she still is, but originally she was signed to ACON. And so ACON, I'm sure ACON never asked her to say it or anything like that, or I'm sure, but she must have seen what ACON was doing, because he did that thing a few years ago where he gave like electric to like 100 million people or something like that.
Africa,
I can't remember. Yeah. So, and obviously I don't know where he's from, but so she's probably on some sort of tip like that, but still, I don't want you on my team.
Okay, fine.
That's trash.
The reason that I was saying that is because she got a lot of like backlash for asking that question.
Yeah.
Just saying like, oh my God. But that, to be fair, that was in America, and it was at a time when, someone had been killed by somebody, and the police had killed somebody, and the police, they get away with it every time. So I would have thought that as somebody who has a huge audience, it's quite obvious what you could do maybe to help in that, in that particular situation. But I think, there needs to be more conversations had about this idea of, I guess a lot of people call it white privilege. Jane Elliott would say white ignorance, because I don't know, it just feels like instead of getting better, it gets worse, and it's not spoken about, and people don't seem to understand the relevance, and it's like people don't get it. And I think one of the major reasons why white people struggle is that they don't understand history, and they don't fully know.
That's through education, isn't it? Like, you only learn what history people want you to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't learn. I was never told in school about the Nat Turner Rebellion. I was never told about.
Were you even taught about the transatlantic slave trade? Because I wasn't.
No, I don't think I was. Especially, I definitely guarantee 100% I wasn't taught about the English part of what the part they played in the transatlantic slave trade. I'm sure that there's certain parts of history they don't want you to learn. Like even to the point there was a Niger where what we would call Nigeria now. I think the queen that was there at the time during some part of slavery, she got word of what was happening over there, what the slavery was like, because there was slavery in Africa, but it was a whole different type of slavery. It was literally like someone wrote a book about it because he was a slave in Africa and then in America. But slavery was just like your children go to school out after hours. You eat your meal. You live in that same house, but you eat your meal after hours, and it's things
so they
like
were
that.
looked after.
They were looked after, and then when they went over to America, and the Nigerian queen learnt what was happening, she done something. I can't remember. She was complaining she was gonna go to war or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it played out, but you don't learn about these things in school because you're busy learning about King Henry VIII. Everybody wants to celebrate King Henry VIII. What do you mean? I have to celebrate this man that killed 2 of his wives,
and had like 8 wives or whatever.
because he couldn't get a son. He's a role model.
Yeah,
he's a role model.
I think that it's completely crazy, and I know that I wasn't taught anything like that in school. When I like recently, there's a couple of girls that I've worked with who are like in their early 20s, and they've genuinely like the conversation. I don't even know why the conversation started. Probably because you're my boyfriend, and it will be around that. But it will end up with them, me maybe questioning if they know anything about, racism or black people, and the consensus is from a couple of people that I've spoken to that they didn't realise that black people came from Africa and were taken to other places in the world by Europeans. They just thought that black people had always been there.
Yeah. And
so, I mean, that just shows you like...
Well, that's another thing we don't learn in history, that black people were there.
Well, yeah.
To be a red-skinned man, to be yellow-skinned, to be, any colour, you have to have had black in you. Like, you had to have come from somewhere. Like, the whole point of racism is because white people at some point in time they felt inferior because they felt threatened, because everywhere they would go, Christopher Columbus went over to Americas, and people traveled to India and Africa and wherever, and everybody was coloured, so they felt inferior. Once they started having sex and multiplying with people of other colour, they realised that their child, their offspring, would be of colour as well. So they felt inferior. They felt because of the dominant and recessive genes.
Yeah? Why does that happen? Why is that humans would feel like that?
Because they felt threatened. They feel like they would get washed out.
But why does it matter? Like, humans are still going to be around, so why does it matter what colour their skin is? Like, I'm just trying to understand why that would be a good idea. But then I suppose there's loads of people with perspectives that I don't understand and that I will never understand. So I guess, there's that. It's just like, I don't know. I find it really hard to accept that it happened then, but to accept that people were still as they are now is even harder to accept. It's even harder to accept. And
well, then what's happened now is after when you keep doing something, it becomes, your culture to keep doing something over and over. When you do it over and over for years, it becomes tradition. It is traditional for people to have the view of they need to keep their circle tight. That's why you have certain groups and things like, even like the government.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to have 1,000 MPs? I don't even know how many MPs there are in England at the moment, but is it necessary for that? Do you need for so many people to be governed at such a micromanaged level?
It's not even the MPs, it's the staff that each MP has. I think I was listening to something and they have like 14 staff each, and there's however many, I think there's something like 30,000 staff employed to cut. It's something crazy.
But then you have 30,000 staff all micromanaging these small groups in areas. Like, if you think about like any small town or a city like Chelmsford, not London's obviously a crazy big financial hub of kind of Europe. Yeah, so maybe you need a few MPs for that, but like a smaller town, you don't need to, how can you micromanage the place and still everybody's be so unhappy? Still everybody wants different things like Remain or Brexit or something like that. So such drastically different ideas and viewpoints all coming from one small town. It's...
But I don't know, like, I think it's because I took that time out to have that year out because I've kind of felt a pull to spirituality, and then I ended up at that yoga school, and I don't think, things just happen by mistake. And I feel like when I look at humans and when I look at myself, it's like we're so caught up with everything external, like and it's almost like it's done on purpose as a complete distraction to keep us away from what we actually are and the power that we actually have as individual humans. Which when people, like when you first start hearing stuff like that, you're like, oh my God, here goes another crazy hippie. Like, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, this is a load of bullshit, blah, 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 blah. She's mad, she's crazy.
Well, most of the time when you speak, I think something like
Thanks, babe. But the more I've delved into it, the more I find it resonates with and is truthful, and the more I find that so many other people have done, do, and continue to practice in that same way. So I think that the fact that we're so concerned with this material world, with this body, is a huge distraction from what we really are. And at the moment, that's why there's so many people, like there's the rate of male suicides in this country is through the roof. Like the amount of people on antidepressant medication in the Western world, is through the roof. Like it's just insane that people seem like they're so miserable and they're so unhappy. I don't know. I think somewhere along the line we've gone wrong. Very wrong.
Well, yeah, it's hard to pinpoint where
when
exactly
that was
it's gone wrong, but there's so many. I think what it is that there's so many different factors. Whether they could be very small, minuscule changes in culture, but added to other things, bigger parts and other smaller parts, they have a large difference, a large effect on how people think and how they assess their own lives.
Yeah.
It's
quite a deep conversation.
It was quite deep, for episode number 1.
Episode number 1.
Technically,
haven't scared everyone off.
Technically, it should be number 2. If it wasn't for you, it would be number 2.
It would be number 2. But I think it was important because I kind of feel like it's called A Shade of Grey. We wanted to do it because we wanted to talk about issues that people don't normally talk about, but also the fact that you are black, I am white.
Is it?
Yeah, I've just realised. And I think, like when you were talking about, in Brazil, when we were having that conversation and you had that kind of that belief at that point, what did you think about me? Like, didn't you think, oh no, she's ruined it?
I thought, as I said, with you and Jane Elliott, I thought that you just weren't ready for, certain things. Not to say that I was right about everything that I said, or Jane Elliott is right about everything that she said, or that even me and her are on the same level to be having some sort of chinwag or discussion about serious things. But I just thought at the time, you where you were in your mind place. Obviously, you're not prejudiced or in any way or anything like that. But at the same time, when someone tells you what other people may feel towards you because of your skin color, or certain viewpoints that you might have, not prejudice viewpoints, but just things that you thought were just accepted. It's difficult for you to hear at that time. So I was saying it from a point of like we just met really, and we were just having a discussion about things. So, and I was just giving you my opinion that at this point in time, I think it would be easier if black people and white people separated so they can both.
Yeah, but you said that, and now you're with a white person. So what will happen? We'll have to separate.
I said it because I didn't know who you were at the time.
You didn't realise?
I didn't think you knew who you were at the time.
No, I didn't know who I was. That's why I was there.
Exactly. So after however long, we've become to learn a bit more about each other and about not just about each other, but about the situation, about the times that we live in now, and it's very interesting. I would say it's a very interesting time to be alive. I'm not, ecstatic about it, about everything that's going on.
If I could choose any moment in time to be alive, probably now wouldn't be it.
If you could choose any moment in time, when would it be?
Man, I don't know.
That's a difficult question. Is it?
Yeah.
Because for me and you, it's a very different question.
Well, that's but that's if you make the assumption that you would still be black and I would still be white. Like it depends.
Well, cool. Obviously.
No, there's lots of people. If it was you, I suppose, yeah. If it was you going back, but if you like,
I'll go back to any time. I'll still be black.
There's an idea that we've all experienced previous lives, and that we would have been all kinds of different people, different races, different places during those lives, which is an interesting concept, which might be a bit way out there. But you can do like past life regression. I've never done that, but I'd be really interested to do it. Might also be really freaked out. And apparently, when you do ayahuasca, which is the Peruvian shamanic experience that you go back through those, you go back to some of those places. Anyway, okay. That's just what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. I've never tried it. I'm not, I don't say whether it's good or bad, or whether that actually happens. But yeah, okay. If I could go back to any time in history, I feel like it would be good to go back to a time where I could make a difference, but I don't think I really could on my own. Maybe I could though. Maybe I could go back to like being on a boat that landed in Africa that was going to take people to be slaves and just, blow up the boats or something good like that and just change the course of the whole of history.
I like to make trouble. So I would be back in the 60s just because I'll go and watch some Muhammad Ali fights.
Would you be? Where would you be?
See what the Black Panthers are really up to.
In America? Then, because if you wanted to be...
No, to be honest with you, I don't think there is a time in history where I would go to America.
No.
Because it's just, it's just a bit...
Peak.
It's just a bit dangerous. It's just a bit nuts.
It's totally nuts.
But there's places that I would like to go in America, but it's just, maybe not live there.
Yeah, I think maybe you could go and visit, but to live there is just not the one at all. But I don't know, I think like America makes me so just like sad. I saw a video on Facebook the other day, and it was taken on Christmas Day in downtown LA. Yeah. Have you seen the video? And it's someone driving around, and what's that computer game called where you go around and kill people?
Grand Theft Auto?
It kind of looks like that. All the streets, every street, wherever they drive, is just filled with homeless people, with their shopping trolleys, with tents made out of tarpaulin, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homeless people. And we have like people living in poverty in this country, but in America, it's through the roof, the amount of people. It's crazy. And I don't know what's happened or where humans went wrong, but it's like we're destroying ourselves as in our species. We're horrible to each other, and we're destroying our planet and the other creatures that live on our planet. It's all a bit crazy, isn't it?
Well, I think that's what you're talking about there. We're destroying everything, and homelessness as well. I think that's through capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no sense of
community.
Community throughout countries or worlds. No. Well, throughout the world, really, to the fact that there are countries where people segregate themselves from each other.
Divide and conquer again, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a problem. But
also, I think that we don't like to take responsibility for our fellow humans. It's like well, no, I've done this myself. I got myself into this situation. If they want to do the same, they can do the same. You know, it's that whole thing. And I remember having this argument once with someone, to go back to race, but about black people and crime rates and etc. And I had to explain to that person. And there's a really good video that someone did where they basically had people lined up to do a race. Yeah. And then it was like, if you're white or whatever, take a step forward. If you come from a 2-parent family, take a step forward. And it ended up that in this race you could win $200. That there was disproportionately like loads of white people out in front and loads of black people at the back. Yeah. And that's kind of how it is. Like, I know you were talking about earlier, like it's a game of Monopoly, but it's like you can't keep a bird in a cage and then open the door and go, there you go, bird, go outside and live free. You know, when everyone else, the cat and everyone else, knows that bird has no clue how to live there, and any moment it's just going to pounce on it and eat it alive. Well, it doesn't work like that. And so it's kind of like we just go look at other people's situations, and instead of going, what can I do to help that person, or how can I help other people, we just kind of look after ourselves. And again, that is about that materialism and that fear that's instilled with us that makes us these individual little, you know, islands. We've got to look after ourselves and all of that kind of stuff, and we don't help people anymore or help each other. Sad.
Oh, that's it. That's capitalism. If you're not helping me, I'm not helping you. That's it.
But that might be capitalism, but I don't think that's humanism, if that's a real thing. Like, I don't think
humanism.
I don't think that's human. I don't think it's human to do that. I don't think it is. I think it's, and that's probably why people are so miserable and so unhappy, because we've moved so far away from what our true nature is that we're just lost. Everyone's just lost.
What they say is it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
We've come a long way from that. Because it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village also to look after the adult as well. Mm-hmm. You know, we're supposed to be helping out each other.
But that's so true. And I feel like my mum died when I was a kid, and I didn't have a village to help me out. And if I had have done, it probably would have been very different. You know,
well, you did. You just spoke about it earlier, School Coggeshall.
I didn't. I wasn't there when my mum died. But yeah, it's that. And I'm speaking metaphorically, you know, about people are just scared of death. I think that's a topic for another podcast. But so everyone just kind of avoids you and avoids your family, and then, you know, it just kind of, it's not great. Whereas if that had happened in a community situation as people used to live, someone else would just step in and, you know, it would just be taken care of, I guess. And that was that. You know, it wouldn't be such a big deal. My granddad was telling us about his mum, remember? And he was saying that the one thing that she always used to say is you have to have the courage to start again, because her mum died when she was a kid, and then she had to go to her uncle's, and then they got kicked out of there, and then she had to start a life somewhere else. So it's that, you know, but she still had like an uncle's to go to, or I don't know. It's just a bizarre situation. But I think you're totally right. Like, if you have that sense of community, and then within a community as well, you have different people you go to for different things, don't you? Like, you might know that someone's quite wise or someone's quite intelligent, and I don't know, don't really see that much of that. People have it, I guess, within their friendships, but our friends don't always live on our doorsteps, do they? They're not within our community.
That's true.
So, are you hungry?
I'm always hungry.
You want some dinner?
I always want dinner.
Yeah, it's true.
You offering me?
Tonight I am making a red lentil and coconut dal.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to get on with it.
Is it finished?
Listen, I haven't started it yet, babe.
Oh.
Sozzles about that. That means you can help me.
I'll get a takeaway.
No, we won't get a takeaway. We're saving money. We're going on holiday on the 19th of January. If you are...
I got my money. I don't know about you.
Whatever. If you are listening to this and you've enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe. We will be trying to do one a week and uploading some other content as well. Yes. That's my professional bit. Boom!
Yeah, subscribe to me. Subscribe to Clara.
You haven't got a YouTube yet, have you?
A Shade of Grey podcast.
Yep. Have you got a YouTube channel of your own?
I don't have a YouTube channel.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on...
what is it on Instagram?
Mr. Nathan Toole.
Toole spelled with an E.
NATHANTOOLE. Also on Twitter at Nathan Toole. Just like that. Easy as that. Clara, she's on social media as well.
I'm on social media as either Clairahermet or Miss Clairahermet. I think all of it's Clairahermet apart from Instagram, which is Miss Clairahermet. But Clairahermet was mine, but then we've...
All right, calm down anyway.
Okay.
A Shade of Grey podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that. We are going to be on YouTube. We're going to be on Apple.
Podcast thing.
The App Store. Is it called the App Store?
Well, I don't know.
We're going to be on the App Store.
Ooh.
We are going to be on wherever you get your podcast from. We're about
that. Can I just say one thing? I keep forgetting that there's a camera there because I used to do radio and I'm like sitting here, I scratch my butt so far and I've been scratching my head as well.
Well, you've also been looking at the camera several times, which is not very professional.
But I've been looking at it to see if the battery power's running out or if the time's running out.
Okay, that's
but
not
sometimes
very
I make reference to the
very
camera.
professional ever.
Subscribe to our channel, Shade of Grey. Yeah. I don't know why I did that in an American accent.
Anyway,
Okay, bye.
thanks for listening.
Oh, and if you've got any topics you'd like us to discuss on the podcast, please feel free to comment below. Yeah, buddy.
Make sure you do. Thank you for listening.
We out.